What is going on, guys? Dave from Wake Up It's Football and with the Red Zone Blitz alongside of Alex Petakas from ESPN Milwaukee. Alex, how's your week been going?
It's been going pretty good. How come I get a full name and you get only your
first
name?
I mean, it's a little bit more of a, I don't know. They know me and they don't exactly know you.
I got it. You're big time, basically, is what you're saying.
I'm not saying big time, but they want to know who you are.
Well, you're big time.
Slightly. Very small. It's a small community. Today's Red Zone Blitz is brought to you by FanDuel.com. Join a one-day league for real money. League winners get their money instantly, and a new season begins the next day. That is FanDuel.com. You must be 18 years or older to gamble. Click the link below for more details. So let's get right into this one. After last night, the Giants are now 0-6. Easy question. What is their main problem? Is it Eli Manning, the defense, something else? Alex, go ahead.
Eli Manning, I think. Now, your defense can be bad all you want. I mean, Aaron Rodgers was great and won 15 games with the worst defense in the league. You know, I mean, and I always localize everything and bring it back to the Packers just because that's the team you cover. But it's the truth. I mean, if you're bad on defense and you don't turn the football over at the rate that Eli Manning is turning the football over, you're not 0-6. You know, I mean, you can ill afford to turn the ball over when you're not getting a ton of stops, and all he's doing is that. I mean, he's going to shatter records for interceptions. I don't understand. Those two rings grant him so much because Eli Manning is playing at a level right now that if other quarterbacks were playing at and turning the football over that much, their coaches would be contemplating benching them. And Eli Manning's not going to get benched. You know, it's never going to happen. I was their backup, like Ryan Nassib from Syracuse. But, I mean, if he weren't Eli Manning, you could probably warrant benching him or having his job being in jeopardy.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
And although some of the turnovers and the interceptions he had last night were questionable, considering it was a miscommunication between him and his wide receivers, when you give that many opportunities to the opposing offenses, when you turn the ball over, I don't think that there should be an argument made that the Giants' defense is giving up X amount of points, which is costing them the game. Because when you give the opposing offense so many opportunities to score, of course they're eventually going to score.
Right.
So I think it falls on Eli. He has 15 interceptions so far in 6 games, including 2 fumbles. That's 17 turnovers by one player.
Mm-hmm.
That's too much. And I agree with you. If you want to sit there and contemplate benching him, that's not outrageous. That is not an outrageous thought.
I mean, it's not for his level of performance, but for who he is and what he's done. I mean, look, I wouldn't hate it if they did. I would think it's a gutsy move if they did, but I don't even think I don't think they would have that conversation.
And I don't think they will either.
Right.
But the performance that he's having, maybe you think about it, but I don't think they will because the guy behind him is probably not going to do any better. So, like you said, just because it's Eli, just because of those 2 Super Bowl rings, that's kind of just the way it's going to go.
Has he ever done anything outside of those 2 years where he won the Super Bowl? I don't mean like he didn't have some good years, but I don't even think he's won a playoff game outside of the 2 years that he won every playoff game. I mean, it's like, some guys can be good every single year and they're not going to win the Super Bowl every single season, and some guys can be good once or twice, flash in the pan, and be league average the rest of the time. And those guys who won the 2 times are still going to be considered on the same level as guys who get it done every single year. Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers don't have bad seasons. I know they did when they started, probably. They weren't having success. But they're never going to have a year like Eli Manning is having. But somehow Eli is still, he's got 2 rings and they have 1. Like that's just silly to me. I take long-term greatness and take my chances at a Super Bowl as opposed to the flash in the pan, where outside of 2 seasons, he's not great. He's barely top 10.
I think the best season he had was the last Super Bowl season that he had. The best season statistically where he didn't really make too many mistakes. He threw for a bunch of touchdowns. Yardage was, I think, in the 4,000 range.
And what did he win, 9 games in the regular season? 10?
Was it 9? It was 9 or 10 because I believe they were the 6th seed when they won that Super Bowl. So, I mean, that just goes to show, I don't know. Eli Manning and some of these other quarterbacks that we're going to be getting to here are just kind of I don't know, what would you describe it in one word?
I don't know. I mean, it's the gift that keeps on giving. The argument of guy who won Super Bowl but isn't that good, and guy who's really good and doesn't win many Super Bowls or doesn't even win one. I mean, everyone's going to discredit everything that other guys who haven't won Super Bowls do, or guys who only have one, because Eli's done it twice, and he beat the undefeated Patriots, and he beat Tom Brady. He's the only guy that Tom Brady's lost to in a Super Bowl. Like, all that means nothing to me if you're not good, if you're not going to go out and be good. If you're going to go out and lead the league in interceptions and give your chance no team to win by turning the football over all the time. And that's what he's doing right now. So, I mean, yeah, I'm not putting him anywhere near my list of top quarterbacks. I mean, there's a handful of guys. There's second-year guys who I think are better than him right now. Andrew Luck is better than him. Russell Wilson might be better than him. And they say that because they're going out and giving their team a chance to win. They're performing at a high level. He's not. He's killing his team, man. And it's New York, and they're going to write about it. It's going to be talked about and overhyped the entire time. And he has a very, very long leash because it's a two-time Super Bowl champion. But if that's anybody else, if that's a guy who hasn't won in the past, dude, he's not starting next week. He's fighting for his job in practice and during games.
Yeah, and I'm starting to ask myself, how many wins is it going to take to win that division?
I don't know, 8?
Because you already know the Giants are out.
Yeah.
You got the Eagles, who are at 2-3 right now.
Yeah.
Redskins aren't doing good. Giants the Cowboys are kind of up and down. 8.
Yeah, I mean, if there's ever a year for Tony Romo to just get it done and shut people up, it's this year because there's no one stopping him.
No one in
that division stopping him.
And I agree.
Yeah.
So it could be the Cowboys season, just the way that it's been going on in the first 5 weeks. Let's transition to Minnesota. You got the Vikings quarterback, Christian Ponder, who has been cleared to play after we were told that he would be out for about a month with a rib fracture. The Vikings plan to start Matt Castle, but they have gone out and signed former Tampa Bay Buccaneer Josh Freeman. It sounds like they're juggling quarterbacks over there in Minnesota. Who finishes the season as the starting quarterback with the Vikings?
Who finishes the season? Let's see. End of the season, I'm thinking about next year, especially for Minnesota, because I don't think they're going to be in playoff contention. So I would say Josh Freeman, because I would say if you're going to build a future around any of them, he's the one. You've seen a glimpse or two of him to make you feel like maybe there's something there. You get him in a new situation, you rejuvenate his career. I don't necessarily think Christian Ponder is going to be the quarterback when this team is playing at a high level. And Matt Castle is just kind of a retread, backup, emergency starter kind of guy. So if I have to invest in the future, which is what I'm doing in Week 17, I go Josh Freeman. And I start planning for life with Freeman as my quarterback.
And I think this is Christian Ponder's last year to legitimately get any kind of a start at the quarterback position. So the question I think that is raised now is, if we think Josh Freeman, which I think he will be that starter at the end of the year for the Vikings, if we think Josh Freeman is going to be that guy, do they go out and sign him next year or for the following couple of seasons and give him a contract extension? Because right now it's just a one-year contract.
Yeah, and that's why I think you end the season with him too, because you have to find out what you have. I mean, you know what you have in Christian Ponder. And to some extent, you probably know what you have in Matt Castle because there's such a large sample size for him in the league. You don't really know because because at one point he looked like a franchise quarterback and the next point he looked like, a guy who can't touch the field. I still don't really know what you have. I think they still don't know what they have in Josh Freeman. So I think they give him the rest of this season to find out so that in the offseason they know, okay, we got to extend this guy, give him, maybe 2 years, low money, and tell him he's going to be our starter, or do we just part ways with him altogether and then look for a quarterback in the draft? You know what I'm saying?
I think what you should do is stick with Freeman, let Castle go. Christian Ponder, I know you drafted him in the first round. It's been 3 seasons now. This is his 3rd season. He really hasn't shown anybody anything. Last year in the first 5-6 games he looked solid, but then he just kind of fell off. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I'm not really seeing Christian Ponder as a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. So I wouldn't be surprised if they part ways with him. And they target a quarterback early in the draft next year.
Yeah, Teddy Bridgewater. Here you go.
And they're saying Bridgewater might be a top 10 guy though.
Well, you don't think the Vikings will have?
Well, okay. So let's pose this question: if they do go Teddy Bridgewater and they decide to keep Josh Freeman, what happens then?
Right, the best guy sees the field. That's all. You
Okay.
can never have enough in today's national NFL. You can never have enough quarterbacks.
And yeah, that's true.
I mean, honestly,
it's the most important position.
If a team, I think I've said this before. If a team drafted a quarterback with their first and second round pick, everyone would probably think that's stupid. I think that's smart because if a second round pick pans out, who cares? It doesn't. It won't matter about wasting draft picks. You know what I'm saying? Like once you find your guy, you don't have to worry about wasting draft picks because you're going to be good either way. So do whatever you can to find that guy. You know. So I don't think it's stupid at all if they have both of them with them. Best guy sees the field. You keep the other guy. And then, figure out the future at your backup position.
The wisdom of Alex Petakas, fellas. That is the wisdom.
That's not really wisdom. It's just true.
No, because a lot of people don't think like that.
No one cycles through quarterbacks.
No, they don't.
Everyone just drafts a guy and hangs on and says, "Oh, please, like maybe next year it'll be different."
That's what they're doing with Christian Ponder right now.
Next year's not going to be different. If you find a guy and he's your guy, you know it.
Yeah,
you just know it. You don't sit around waiting for it. You pull the plug if you don't know it. Because all that's doing is you're wasting time. You're living in that period in the NFL where at best you're 9-7 and at worst you're 4-12, and it's literally the worst place to be in the NFL is hanging on to something that you know is never going to happen. I mean, come on, like you go into the season. There's in the NFL it's greater than any other sport. Maybe not hockey. But there's like 6 to maybe 10 teams who can win a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
all of those other teams. Half of those teams have a quarterback. We're like, oh, maybe next year. Maybe we'll get another year under our belt. This and that. No, I want to be one of those 10 teams, and I'll instantly become one of those 10 teams when I find the guy.
How ironic was it last year that 2 or 3 of those teams happened to find quarterbacks? In Andrew Luck.
Yeah. I mean, it's really. I mean, you look at quarterback draft classes. There's legendary drafts. This is going to be remembered as one of them.
Yeah,
I think, and I think a large part of that hinges on Robert Griffin III because I think Russell Wilson. Based off the way the Seahawks are composed right now, and Andrew Luck are going to be in the postseason consistently for years to come. I still don't know about RG3. I think he's a great player, and I think the Redskins can be really good with him as their quarterback. But I think of all the teams last year, they were probably the fakest.
Okay.
They were the smokescreen team because I think the Colts and the Seahawks are for real. So I'm hoping that all 3 of these guys. I want an RG3 Russell Wilson battle in the postseason. I mean, look what happened when Russell Wilson played Andrew Luck. I mean, look at what happened when they matched up last weekend in the regular season. That's awesome,
Mm-hmm.
Because when 2 quarterbacks are drafted in the same class, they're always going to be linked together, always. You know what I mean? One guy, Andrew Luck went before RG3, and now all of a sudden it's Andrew Luck versus RG3. I mean, that's such a cool storyline. It's like they're friends, they hang out, they were in the green room together. It's just like Aaron Rodgers and Alex Smith, except not quite as competitive on that route as it would be between these 3 guys.
Hey, I got something to run by you real quick because while we're on the subject, the buddy of mine, Ezra, who I do the Red Zone Blitz with every week, he's made a bold prediction, okay? And he says, he knows it might not happen, but it is a very bold prediction that in a couple of years, RG3 and the Washington Redskins part ways, and Kirk Cousins emerges as that starter for the Redskins.
I'm sorry, so one more time. Who said this, your buddy?
Yes, Ezra. You're
a smart guy. I love Kirk Cousins. I really do. I mean, that is a bold prediction.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't say smart. I'll say gutsy with a slight element of genius. No?
Because no. I don't disagree with it completely either.
Think about it. I didn't hear it. I would assume his logic is RG3 is going to keep getting injured. Kirk Cousins is going to keep playing at a high level, and they're going to realize at some point you can't win the National Football League without a guy who could stand back there and sling it. You can't win in the National Football League with a guy at quarterback who relies a lot on his legs. It's just not going to happen. And maybe at some point, RG3 still has value. There's other teams out there that think, I can hang on. I want that guy.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, RG3 becomes the Oakland Raiders' hope, and Kirk Cousins becomes the Redskins' future. I like that. You got to send me that. I got to go back and listen to that. I'd be interested to see how that played out.
I like Kirk as well, but his angle a little bit more was that on top of the injuries, maybe RG3 becomes kind of that larger-than-life, I'm better than the team type player. From what we've seen kind of in the offseason where he was wearing that shirt when he was injured, like I can't remember what it said, like I want to start or I want to play, and Mike Shanahan was holding him back from his ACL injury, and some of the things that just RG3 was saying and doing, I don't necessarily disagree with it, But just Ezra, the way that he saw it, I don't know. He just thought that, it's a bold prediction on his part. I wouldn't completely disagree with it because I do like Kirk Cousins a lot. But we'll see. We will see in a couple of years if that happens. Ezra, shout out to you if your prediction.
Yeah, I like that. I root for Kirk Cousins. He's a very likable guy. I think he played in one of the more memorable Michigan State games, right? Wasn't it that? Yeah, where their head coach was dealing with wasn't he dealing with a health issue or a family issue? I can't believe I don't remember this.
I'm not 100% certain.
And they won on
the Hail Mary,
the last play, and he's. I mean, I've never spoken to him, but he's got like everyone says, oh, he's such a smart guy, he's such a great guy. You root for a guy like that.
Yeah. Now I know we talked about Tony Romo last week regarding Romo being a choke artist. Now, is it fair to give him that title yet again in last week's performance against the Broncos when he threw that late game interception that cost him the Cowboys, or that caused the Cowboys a game?
You're saying, is it fair to call him a choke artist still?
Just for that specific game.
No, come on. He gave you a chance to win against the Broncos. There's not a lot of teams who are going to be able to say that this year.
51-48.
He almost outdueled Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
No.
Over 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. And then here's the thing that just irks me. But he also threw 1 interception.
No, yeah, come on. It's the gift that keeps on giving. There are some narratives in sports that are never going to stop.
No.
One of them is Tony Romo and whether or not he's a choke artist or whether or not he is actually one of the more talented quarterbacks in the National Football League. I'm not saying like top 5, but I'm just saying it's going to be Tony Romo choking, and all the people like maybe you, I think you, and I, who have perspective and realize the only reason his team is in the game is because of him. And all anyone's going to judge him on is the one mistake he makes. And that's going to be a constant narrative. The Peyton versus Eli thing, Super Bowl rings versus actual greatness. It's like the LeBron thing when the Heat weren't winning championships yet, and he was having like triple doubles, almost quadruple doubles, and then at the end of the game, Dwayne Wade is shut out in the fourth quarter, and everybody just blames it on LeBron. Like, oh, why did they lose? LeBron's a choke artist. No, they're in the game and they're competitive, and it came down to the final possession because he was so damn great that he gave his team a chance to even be in that spot. Now, Tony Romo is by no means a LeBron James, but we're always going to judge somebody by the last play. Never the 72 plays before that where the guy was great and the guy was going toe-to-toe with Peyton Manning, who was going to win his 5th MVP this year. So, no, off of that game alone, hell no, it's not fair to call him that.
Not at all. Not at all.
I feel like I'm talking a lot.
No, it's not that. I mean,
you're getting me fired up. You got good questions today.
You just have a lot to say, and I don't disagree with you on everything. I mean, it's just Tony Romo. When you have a quarterback that throws for over 500 yards in a game, 5 touchdowns, and you still lose, I mean, could you point a little bit of a finger at the defense, at both defenses in that game? You shouldn't let it get high scoring at all. As a defensive unit, you don't want the opposing offense to put up any points on you, let alone 51-48.
Mm-hmm.
So I point the finger at the defense. Don't point the finger at Tony Romo.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I'm with you on that, 100%.
Speaking of the Broncos, they're sitting comfortably as the best team in the league right now, and the Jaguars are probably sitting at one of the worst. Both of these teams are playing each other this week, and the Broncos are favored by 28 points, which is the highest spread in NFL history. What will be the final score on this one? And do they rest Peyton Manning after a large lead?
Yeah, so we have this pick'em pool here at 540 ESPN, and I'm good. I'm like a game or two off the lead. And one of the hardest games to pick this week was this one because Jacksonville is 27.5-point dogs, and part of me feels like at some point they're going to have to cover. I mean, they're like 12-point dogs. They're 10-point dogs. 27.5 is a historic spread, literally. In National Football League betting lines, 27.5 is historic. This is the NFL. Like, if you cannot cover 27.5-point spread, what are you doing? You're in. The whole thing about, like, oh, could Alabama beat Jacksonville? It's going to get hard to keep just downplaying that if they're just going to be so putrid. I think Jacksonville covers. I say they win or they lose by less than 4 touchdowns. And it's for exactly what you pointed out. I don't think Peyton Manning's playing 4 quarters. Okay. When they're up 35-0 going into the half, some part of John Fox is going to be like, all right, you take the first series and then we'll go to our backup, and then the Jags will score 2 or 3 touchdowns at garbage time, and they'll have like 400 yards of offense because Denver's playing prevent and not even tackling and just kind of hanging out because they have the game in the bag.
Yeah, and I think,
that's what I honestly think happening, because
I
I think when Denver is playing hard at the beginning of the football game, nothing is going to stop them.
2 quarters? Do you give Peyton Manning 2 quarters and then they sit him?
I don't know that he needs rest. That's the thing.
It's not that he needs rest. It's just you keep Peyton Manning in there and risk him being injured.
Risk injury, and like at some point it's going to be cruel to keep putting him back there at quarterback. It's just going to be like, this is unfair.
That too. And actually, one thing that people aren't really thinking about at all in this game that I actually just thought about, I want to see Brock Osweiler play. I want to see the guy who's going to succeed Peyton Manning, and how he does and how he plays. Even though it's not a good Jacksonville team, it's still an NFL team. I want to see how Brock Osweiler plays if they decide to put him in.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting. The guy has the same stature almost as Peyton Manning. He's learning behind Peyton Manning. Do we see a scenario where something like Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers happens in Denver with Peyton Manning and Brock Osweiler?
I mean, maybe. I don't know if Brock Osweiler is Aaron Rodgers, but yeah, I mean, you could.
He was drafted in the 2nd round.
Yeah, and Rodgers was close to the 2nd round.
Yeah, he started slipping.
Yes, he did. But he was also thought to be the first overall pick at one point, like days before the draft.
That is true.
So, but yeah, no, maybe you could see that. I don't know if you're at the point yet where you're like, well, we need to get this guy reps because Peyton's not going to be around that long, and he's not going to be around that long. But it's not like there's, it's like Peyton Manning's going to win an MVP this year. You don't really want to take that guy off the field ever.
Without a doubt.
But in a game like this, you can take him off the field.
Game of the week, Alex. We got 3 of them on the list here. Packers at Ravens, Saints at Patriots, and Colts at Chargers. Which one would you, if you had to pick one of the 3? And I know we're both Packer fans, but I'm going to go with a different game.
Yeah, so am I. Saints, Patriots.
Yep.
Huge.
Yep.
Love that game right there. I mean, the Patriots are a one-loss football team, right? Am I crazy?
Patriots?
They lost the game.
They lost the game.
Yeah, they lost their last
to the
game.
Bengals.
Yeah. They're a one-loss football team. Yeah, God. When Tom Brady doesn't throw a touchdown, like what's happening? The monsoon at the end of the game, right? That was last week.
52nd game.
He was about to tie the record.
Yeah.
And everyone's just like, the record's never going to end. Like, of course Tom Brady's going to throw 1 touchdown. Nope. Didn't get there. This, to me, is more of a measuring stick for the Patriots than anything. And it's weird saying that because when the Saints come off the year that they had and they're unbeaten, I think people would think, oh, well, maybe they're not a real, 5-0, 6-0, whatever. Let's see what happens when they go to New England. I think it's a test for New England.
I do too.
I think it's more of a test for New England because if New England expects to be competing and being a Super Bowl caliber team this year, they got to be competitive against New Orleans. And I'm not necessarily willing to say that they won't get beaten and beaten handedly in their own house by the Saints. Because the Saints are proven when you think about it. I mean, last year was an anomaly, and everyone's going to judge them off their record from a year ago. This is way more the team that was going 13-3 than it was the team that was struggling last season.
One thing that is starting to being talked about with the Saints is their defense.
Yeah,
they're not
done a nice job.
They're not allowing opposing offenses to put up points on them.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that's huge. Secondly, the Patriots and the receiving corps are struggling big time. Their rookie receivers, some of their younger guys cannot catch balls that Tom Brady's throwing at them.
Right.
And that is costing them points, and arguably that's costing them games. So they better start working on learning how to catch a football before they do anything else in practice for that receiving corps, and then they go from there. And I'm going to pick the Saints to win this game this week because I can see Jimmy Graham having a huge game. I can see Drew Brees putting up 300-400 yards on the Patriots defense.
And I can see Tom Brady being a little inconsistent against the Saints. That offense is lacking rhythm big time now.
2 points. Saints defense, Patriots receivers. Defense is playing good, receivers are playing bad. That's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, that's a recipe for putting a lot on the shoulders of Tom Brady. And it's one thing to do that on a week-to-week basis. Another thing to do that when he's battling another quarterback who you're confident is going to light up the scoreboard in Drew Brees.
I think it's fair to say that both these quarterbacks are probably top 5 in the league.
Yeah. Yep.
So
100%.
So this is going to be a very good one. Other than that, you got Packers at Ravens and Colts at Chargers. Throw your guys' comments down below on the game of the week for you. And Alex, appreciate you having 3 weeks in a row now.
Yep, it's been good. Thanks.
And that is the Red Zone Blitz. We're out.